When Tessa texts her cousin about groceries and meds, the message lands in the hands of reclusive billionaire Roman Veale instead. He shows up with wildflowers and a secret. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Tessa Monroe sighed as she dumped her keys into the small ceramic bowl by her apartment door. Another long day at Riverside Mall, where she worked at Homestyle, a home goods store that paid just enough to keep her afloat. Her feet ached, and her lower back throbbed from standing at the register for 8 hours straight. "Aunt Maggie," she called out, setting down her purse on the kitchen counter. "I'm home." Her aunt's soft voice came from the living room. "In here, dear, how was work?" Tessa walked into their modest living room, where her Aunt Maggie sat in her favorite armchair, a crocheted blanket over her knees, despite the warm May evening. At 65, her aunt moved slower these days, especially since her arthritis had worsened. "Same as always," Tessa said, leaning down to kiss her aunt's cheek. "Mrs. Peterson complained about the price of throw pillows, and Mr. Carlton tried to return a blender he clearly used for 3 months. Aunt Maggie chuckled. "That man returns everything, remember the toaster?" "How could I forget?" Tessa smiled, grateful for her aunt's humor, despite the pain she knew the older woman endured daily. Tessa checked the pill organizer on the side table. "You took your medication?" "Yes, dear. Right after Wheel of Fortune." Tessa nodded and headed to the kitchen to check their supplies. Opening the refrigerator, she frowned at the nearly empty shelves. They needed groceries and Aunt Maggie needed her prescription refilled. "I need to text Jason to see if he can drop off your medication tomorrow," Tessa called out. Her cousin often helped with errands when Tessa worked late shifts. She pulled out her phone and started typing a message to Jason. "Hey, can you pick up Aunt Maggie's arthritis meds tomorrow and drop off some groceries? We need milk, bread, eggs, her favorite tea, and maybe some of those cookies she likes. I'll be working until 7. The address is 1422 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Thanks." Tessa hit send without double-checking the number, then put a frozen dinner in the microwave. She was too tired to cook tonight, and her small savings had to stretch until payday on Friday. While waiting for the microwave to beep, she pulled out her sketchbook from her bag. Drawing was her one escape, the dream she kept quietly tucked away. She had applied to art school years ago, but when Aunt Maggie got sick, Tessa put those plans on hold. Family came first, always had. After dinner, Tessa helped her aunt to bed, and then took a quick shower. As she towel-dried her dark brown hair, she checked her phone again. No response from Jason. She frowned, wondering if he was busy with his kids. An hour later, as Tessa sat cross-legged on her small sofa, sketching a vase of wilting daisies, the only decoration she could afford for their apartment this month, there was a knock at the door. She glanced at her watch. Nearly 9:30 p.m., too late for Jason, who never came by after 8 because of his early work schedule. "Who is it?" she called, approaching the door cautiously. No answer. Tessa peered through the peephole and saw a tall man standing there, his face partly turned away as he looked down the hallway. He was holding something in his hands. Her heart skipped a beat, but something about his posture didn't seem threatening. Still, she kept the chain lock in place as she opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man turned to face. Her and Tessa's breath caught. He was strikingly handsome, with dark, slightly messy hair and deep-set eyes that looked sad. He wore an expensive-looking jacket that seemed at odds with their modest apartment building, and in his hands was a small bouquet of wildflowers. "I think I got your message by mistake," he said, his voice low and uncertain, "but I didn't want to ignore it." Tessa stared at him, confused. "My message?" He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. There was her text, the one meant for Jason, with all the details about groceries and medication. "Oh," she said, realization dawning. "I must have typed the number wrong. I'm so sorry." The man shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "It's fine. I wanted to make sure everything was okay." He glanced down at the wildflowers in his hand, looking almost embarrassed. "These are from my balcony garden. I thought maybe... I don't know what I thought. There was something so vulnerable about him that Tessa found herself closing the door, removing the chain and opening it wider. "That's really nice of you, actually," she said. Most people would have just ignored. "A wrong number text." He gave a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I was going to, I always do, but something about your message, it seemed important." An awkward silence fell between them. "I'm Tessa," she finally said. "Roman," he replied, then extended the flowers toward her. "These are for you or your aunt? You mentioned an Aunt Maggie in your text." Tessa took the flowers, their fresh scent filling the space between them. "Thank you. That's very kind." Another pause. "Would you like to come in?" The words left her mouth before she could think better of them. Inviting a stranger into her home at night wasn't something Tessa normally did, but there was something about this man that made her feel safe rather than threatened. Roman looked genuinely surprised at the invitation. "I wouldn't want to intrude. It's just a cup of tea to say thanks for checking on us. Not many people would do that." After a moment's hesitation, Roman nodded. "Tea would be nice." Tessa stepped back, allowing him to enter her small apartment. She watched as he took in the modest living space, the worn sofa, the small TV, her sketchpad and pencils on the coffee table. "Have a seat," she said, gesturing to the kitchen table while she found a jar to use as a vase for the wildflowers. "I'll put the kettle on." Roman sat at the small table, looking both out of place and somehow right at home. He removed his jacket, revealing a simple grey t-shirt underneath. Despite the casual clothing, there was something about his posture that spoke of privilege. "So," Tessa said as she filled the kettle, "you mentioned a balcony garden. You grow flowers?" Roman nodded. "And some herbs. It helps me focus on something outside myself." "That sounds nice," Tessa said, placing 2 mugs on the table and dropping tea bags into them. "I've always wanted a garden, but not much grows on a 3rd-floor windowsill that only gets morning sun." "You'd be surprised," Roman said, a hint of animation entering his voice for the first time. "There are plants that thrive in partial shade. Ferns, certain herbs like mint, some flowering plants." He stopped abruptly as if catching himself getting too enthusiastic. "Sorry, I don't mean to lecture." "No, please," Tessa encouraged, genuinely interested. "Go on." The kettle whistled, and she poured hot water into their mugs. "Milk? Sugar?" she asked. "Just plain is fine," Roman answered. As they sipped their tea, the initial awkwardness began to fade. Roman asked about her aunt, and Tessa found herself telling him about Maggie's arthritis and how she'd moved in with her aunt 2 years ago after Maggie's husband died. "She took me in when I was 15 after my parents died in a car accident," Tessa explained. "Taking care of her now is the least I can do." Roman's eyes softened. "That's admirable. Not everyone would put their life on hold like that." Tessa shrugged. "It's not really on hold, it's just taking a different path than I expected." "What path did you expect?" Roman asked, his gaze falling on the sketchpad visible on the coffee table. "Art school once upon a time," Tessa admitted. "I still draw when I can, but mostly it's just for me now." "May I?" Roman asked, nodding toward the sketchpad. Tessa hesitated. She rarely showed her work to anyone, but something made her not sure. He retrieved the pad and carefully turned the pages, studying each sketch with surprising intensity. Her drawings were mostly everyday scenes, people at the mall where she worked, her aunt reading, the view from their apartment window. "These are really good," he said, and there was genuine appreciation in his voice. "You have a gift for capturing expressions, moments in time." Tessa felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you. Why didn't you go to art school?" he asked, handing the sketchpad back to her. "Life," she said simply. "Aunt Maggie got sick. Bills needed paying. Dreams sometimes have to wait." Roman nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Some dreams feel that way, don't they? Always waiting for the right moment that never comes." The conversation flowed more easily after that. Roman didn't talk much about himself, deflecting most personal questions with vague answers, but he listened to Tessa with an intensity that made her feel like everything she said mattered. When she mentioned a movie she'd recently watched, he admitted he hadn't seen a film in months. "I've been busy," he said, though something in his tone suggested it was more complicated than that. "Too busy for movies?" Tessa teased. "What do you do that keeps you so occupied?" A shadow crossed his face. "I work in technology. It's demanding. Demanding enough that you can drop everything to bring flowers to a stranger who texted you by mistake," she challenged with a small smile. For the first time, Roman laughed, a short, rusty sound as if he hadn't used those muscles in a while. "Touché. Maybe I needed a break more than I realized." They talked until nearly midnight, the time slipping away unnoticed. When Roman finally looked at his watch, he seemed surprised. "I should go," he said, reluctance evident in his voice. "I've kept you up much too late." Tessa walked him to the door. "Thank you again for the flowers and for checking on us, even though it wasn't actually an emergency." "It was my pleasure," Roman said, and it sounded like he truly meant it. He paused at the threshold, seeming to struggle with something. "Would it be okay if I texted you sometime? Not by accident this time." Tessa found herself smiling. "I'd like that." After he left, Tessa locked the door and leaned against it, trying to process the strange evening. She hadn't felt this kind of connection with someone in years, if ever. There was something about Roman, his quiet intensity, the sadness behind his eyes, the way he seemed both confident and vulnerable at once. As she got ready for bed, she realized she knew almost nothing concrete about him. Not his last name, not where he lived, beyond having a balcony garden, not what he did specifically in technology. And yet she felt she'd glimpsed something real about him, something he didn't show to many people. The next morning, Tessa left for work earlier than usual, planning to stop by the pharmacy for Aunt Maggie's medication herself. As she opened the front door of the building, she almost stepped on a small envelope on the doormat. Inside was a handwritten note in elegant script. "If I told you who I really was, would you still open the door?" Tessa stared at the words, her heart beating faster. What did he mean? Who was Roman really? And why did he feel the need to hide it? As she walked to the bus stop, the note burning a hole in her pocket, Tessa couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken an unexpected turn, all because of a wrong number and a man with sad eyes who brought her wildflowers. Tessa couldn't concentrate at work. The note from Roman kept playing in her mind as she rang up customers at Homestyle. What did he mean? Who was he really? And why would it matter who he was? "Excuse me? Hello?" A customer waved her hand in front of Tessa's face. Tessa blinked, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry, that'll be 4782s. Her manager, Beth, gave her a concerned look from across the floor. "Everything okay, Tessa? You seem distracted today." "I'm fine," Tessa assured her. "Just didn't sleep well." By the time her shift ended, Tessa had checked her phone at least 20 times, hoping for a text from Roman. Nothing. She picked up Aunt Maggie's medication and some groceries before heading home. "I'm back," she called, entering the apartment. Aunt Maggie was watching the news. "How was work, dear?" "Oh, those flowers look lovely today." Tessa glanced at the wildflowers Roman had brought, now arranged in a jar on the kitchen table. "Yeah, they're nice, aren't they? Where did they come from? You didn't mention them this morning." Tessa hesitated. "Someone brought them by last night. A friend." Aunt Maggie raised an eyebrow. "A friend? At that hour?" "It's nothing," Tessa said quickly, unpacking the groceries. "Just someone who was checking on us." Her aunt turned back to the TV, but Tessa could tell she was curious. Just then the news anchor's voice caught her attention. And in business news, speculation continues about the whereabouts of tech mogul Roman Veale, CEO of Veale Industries. The reclusive billionaire hasn't been seen publicly since the funeral of his twin sister, Rachel Veale, last year. The company's board of directors issued a statement today, assuring shareholders that Mr. Veale continues to direct operations remotely. Tessa froze, a carton of milk halfway to the refrigerator. Roman Veale. The name hit her like a truck. The news showed a photo of a man in an expensive suit at some corporate event, though more polished and formal than the man who had sat at her kitchen table last night. There was no mistaking those eyes. "Are you all right, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost." Tessa managed to put the milk away with shaking hands. "I'm fine, Aunt Maggie, just tired." She retreated to her bedroom, claiming she needed to lie down. Once alone, she grabbed her phone and searched Roman Veale. Hundreds of articles appeared. Roman Veale, 30-year-old tech genius who had built Veale Industries from a garage startup to a multi-billion-dollar company in just 8 years. Roman Veale, whose innovative security software was used by governments and corporations worldwide. Roman Veale, who became a recluse after his twin sister died in a boating accident. There were photos of him at galas, tech conferences, and charity events, always impeccably dressed, often with a beautiful woman on his arm. But the most recent photos were from the funeral, where he looked devastated, hollow. If I told you who I really was, would you still open the door? Now his note. Made sense. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. An unknown number. It's Roman. I should have told you last night. I understand if you don't want to talk to me again. Tessa stared at the message for a long time. She should be angry. He had lied to her, or at least hidden the truth. But all she could think about was how genuine their conversation had felt, how he had listened to her with real interest, how he had looked at her drawings with respect. "Why didn't you tell me?" she finally texted back. The reply came quickly. "People treat me differently when they know. I didn't want that. Not with you." "So what now?" she asked. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Could I see you again? Same place tonight?" Tessa bit her lip. This was crazy. He was a billionaire and she was a retail clerk who could barely afford groceries. They lived in completely different worlds. "I'll be home at 8, she texted back. When the knock came at exactly 8:05, Tessa's heart was racing. She opened the door to find Roman standing there, looking more casual than the night before in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. "No flowers this time." "Hi," he said, his eyes uncertain. "Hi," she replied, stepping back to let him in. Aunt Maggie was in the living room and looked up with interest as Roman entered. "Well, hello there. You must be the flower friend." "Aunt Maggie." "This is Roman," Tessa said. "Roman, my Aunt Maggie." Roman approached the older woman with a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. Those were my balcony wildflowers. I'm glad you liked them. They brightened up this place nicely," Maggie said, studying him. "Sit down and tell me how you know my niece." Roman glanced at Tessa, who gave a small nod. "Actually, we just met yesterday," he admitted, sitting across from Maggie. "Tessa texted me by accident." "And you just showed up at our door with flowers?" Maggie's tone was skeptical. "It wasn't my most logical decision," Roman said with a self-deprecating smile. "But sometimes you have to trust your instincts." Maggie's expression softened slightly. "Well, any friend of Tessa's is welcome here, even new ones." She turned back to her TV show, but Tessa could tell her aunt was still paying attention to their every move. "Should we go for a walk?" Tessa suggested quietly. Roman nodded, clearly relieved at the suggestion. "We're going out for a bit, Aunt." "Maggie," Tessa called, grabbing her jacket. "Don't be too late," Maggie replied, not looking away from her show. "And, young man, my niece is special. Remember that." Roman's face grew serious. "I already know that, Mom." Outside, the early summer evening was warm enough that Tessa didn't really need her jacket. They walked in silence for a block before Roman spoke. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you who I was." Tessa glanced at him. "It was a shock to see you on the news today." "I can imagine," he said, hands in his pockets as they walked. "Does it change things?" "I don't know," Tessa admitted. "I mean, and I'm..." She gestured vaguely, unable to find the words. "I'm just a person, Tessa," Roman said quietly. "A person who hasn't had a real conversation with anyone in over a year, not since Rachel died." Tessa led them to a small park near her apartment building. At this hour it was nearly empty except for a few dog walkers. "Tell me about her," Tessa said as they sat on a bench. "Your sister?" Roman looked surprised at the question, then his face softened. "Rachel was my other half. Literally, we were twins." She was the people person, the one who made friends easily, who could charm anyone. I was always the quiet one, more comfortable with computers than people. He smiled faintly. She was the reason Veale Industries succeeded. I had the technical skills, but she knew how to sell it, how to get investors excited. "What happened?" Tessa asked gently. Roman's face clouded. A boating accident. We were celebrating the company's biggest deal ever. I was supposed to be on that boat too, but I stayed behind to finish some work. His voice broke slightly. If I had been there... Tessa touched his arm. You can't think that way. I know, he said. But after she died, everything fell apart. The press wouldn't leave me alone. Everyone wanted a piece of the grieving CEO story. And then there were board members trying to take advantage of my state of mind, competitors circling like sharks. I just couldn't handle it, so I withdrew, started working from home, then barely working at all. And now? Tessa asked. Now I exist, he said simply. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and some days I can't think of a single reason to get out of bed. The honesty of his words struck Tessa deeply. Despite his wealth and privilege, there was something desperately lonely about Roman Veale until yesterday, he added, looking at her. When I got your text, it was like seeing a light in the darkness. Someone who needed something simple, groceries, medicine for an aunt, normal things, real things. My life is very real, Tessa said with a small laugh. Too real sometimes. I envy that, Roman said seriously. Everything in my world feels artificial. The people around me want something. My money, my influence, my company. Nobody just wants me. They sat in silence for a moment, watching as the streetlights came on. So now you know who I am, Roman finally said. The question is, would you have opened the door if you'd known from the start? Tessa considered the question. Honestly, probably not. I would have assumed it was some kind of joke or scam. Roman nodded, accepting this. And now? Will you close the door? I haven't decided yet, Tessa said, but there was a gentle teasing in her voice that made Roman smile. Fair enough, he said. I haven't exactly been forthcoming. No, Tessa agreed, but I understand why. And I'm willing to keep the door open. For now. They walked back to her apartment building slowly, talking more freely now. Roman told her about his penthouse with its large balcony garden, my only real joy these days, and about the pressure of running a company while battling depression. The board keeps pushing me to make public appearances to be the face of the company again, he explained, but I just can't. Not yet. What do you want? Tessa asked. Not what the board wants or what the company needs. What do you want? Roman looked startled, as if no one had asked him that question in a very long time. I don't know anymore, he admitted. For so long, it was all about building the company, making it successful. That was Rachel's dream as much as mine. Now, I'm not sure. At her door, they paused. Would you like to come in for tea? Tessa offered. Roman shook his head. I should get back, but could I see you again? I'm working the next 3 days, Tessa said. But I'm free Sunday. Sunday, Roman repeated, as if making a mental note. What if I took you somewhere, not anywhere fancy, he added quickly, seeing her expression. Just somewhere different. Tessa hesitated. Okay, but no private jets or anything. Crazy, all right? Roman laughed, a real laugh this time. Promise, just a normal day out. As he turned to leave, Tessa called after him, Roman, thank you for telling me the truth. He looked back at her, a vulnerability in his eyes that no amount of money could hide. Thank you for listening. The next few days crawled by. Tessa kept expecting the press to show up at her door. Surely a billionaire visiting a modest apartment would be newsworthy. But nothing happened. Roman texted her each evening, simple messages asking about her day or sharing a photo of a new plant in his garden. On Friday, a delivery arrived at Homestyle, a small pot of mint with a note. You said you wanted a garden. This will grow on your windowsill. Beth raised an eyebrow when Tessa smiled at the plant. Secret admirer? Just a friend, Tessa said, though even to her own ears it sounded unconvincing. Saturday night, Tessa found herself doing something she hadn't done in years, trying on different outfits, wondering what to wear for her. Was it a date? She still wasn't sure. Aunt Maggie watched from the doorway, amusement in her eyes. He seems nice, your Roman. He's not my Roman, Tessa protested, but she felt her cheeks warm. Maybe not yet, Maggie said with a knowing smile. But I haven't seen you this interested. In someone in a long time, it's good. Tessa sighed, discarding another outfit. He lives in a different world, Aunt Maggie. He's a billionaire CEO. And, Maggie challenged, money doesn't define a person, Tessa. The way they treat others does. And from what little I saw, he treats you with respect. It doesn't make sense, Tessa said, sitting on her bed. Why would someone like him be interested in someone like me? Maybe because you see him as a person, not a checkbook, Maggie suggested. That might be rarer in his world than you think. Sunday morning dawned clear and warm. Tessa finally settled on a simple sundress. Not too fancy, but nicer than her everyday clothes. At 10 a.m. exactly, there was a knock at the door. Roman stood there in casual clothes, khaki pants and a blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked more relaxed than she had seen him before. "Ready?" he asked with a smile. "Where? How are we going?" Tessa asked as they walked to the street. "It's a surprise," Roman said, "but I think you'll like it." Tessa had half expected a luxury car with a driver, but instead Roman led her to a modest sedan parked at the curb. "Will you drive yourself?" she asked, surprised. "Sometimes," he said, opening the passenger door for her, "when I want to feel normal." They drove for about 30 minutes, leaving the city behind. Roman seemed more animated today, pointing out landmarks and telling stories about his early days building the company. "Rachel and I lived on ramen noodles and worked 20-hour days," he recalled. "Everyone thought we were crazy, trying to break into such a competitive industry with no connections and almost no funding." "But you proved them wrong," Tessa said. "Shy." "Did," Roman agreed, a touch of pride in his voice. "Those were good days before everything got so complicated." They turned onto a winding road that led up a wooded hill, then pulled into a small parking lot next to a sign that read, Lakeside, Botanical Gardens. "A garden?" Tessa asked, pleasantly surprised. Roman nodded. "I remembered you said you'd always wanted one. This way you can see hundreds in one day." The Botanical Gardens were beautiful, acres of carefully tended flowers, trees and plants from around the world. As they walked, Roman surprised her with his knowledge, identifying rare species and explaining their care. "How do you know so much about plants?" Tessa asked as they paused near a spectacular rose garden. "After Rachel died, I couldn't sleep," Roman explained. "I'd spend hours reading about gardening. It was soothing, the idea that you could nurture something and watch it grow. When nothing else made sense, that did." They stopped for lunch at a small cafe inside the gardens, sitting at an outdoor table overlooking a pond. "No one has recognized you," Tessa observed, keeping her voice low. Roman smiled slightly. "The beard helps," he said, rubbing his jaw where stubble had grown. "And the clothes. People see what they expect to see. No one expects to find Roman Veale eating a sandwich at a public garden." As they ate, Tessa found herself telling Roman about her own dreams, the art school she'd wanted to attend, the portfolio she'd prepared before Aunt Maggie got sick. "Why don't you apply now?" Roman asked. "It's never too late." Tessa shook her head. "Tuition is expensive, and Aunt Maggie needs me. Besides, it was a childish dream." "Dreams aren't childish," Roman said seriously. "They're what keep us going when everything else falls apart." After lunch, they wandered through a greenhouse filled with tropical plants. The warm, humid air and the sound of water from small fountains created a peaceful atmosphere. "I wish I'd brought my sketchbook," Tessa said, admiring an unusual flowering vine. "Here," Roman said, pulling a small notebook and pen from his pocket. "Not ideal, but better than nothing." Tessa took them gratefully and began to sketch the vine. Roman watched her, his expression soft. "You're talented," he said when she finished. "Seriously talented." "Thank you," Tessa said, feeling both pleased and embarrassed by his praise. As the day went on, Tessa found herself relaxing more and more in Roman's company. He was different today, more open, more alive than the withdrawn man who had shown up at her door with wildflowers. In a secluded corner of the gardens, they found a bench overlooking a small lake. The late afternoon sun cast golden light across the water. "This has been wonderful," Tessa said. "Thank you for bringing me here." Roman turned to face her, his expression serious. "Thank you for coming, for giving me a chance, despite everything." There was a moment of silence between them, filled with unspoken feelings. "Tessa," Roman began hesitantly, "I know this is fast and I know our situations are completely different, but—" A sharp ring interrupted him, Roman's phone. He looked at it and frowned. "I'm sorry, I need to take this," he said, standing and walking a few steps away. "Marcus, what is it?" Tessa watched as Roman's posture changed, becoming more rigid, more like the CEO she had seen in news photos. "When?" he was saying. "How bad?" "No, I can't come in right now. Yes, I understand it's serious." When he returned to the bench, his face had hardened. "I'm sorry, but I need to go. There's a situation at the company that requires my attention." "Of course," Tessa said, trying to hide her disappointment. "Is everything okay?" "Just business," Roman said, but his tight expression suggested it was more serious than he was letting on. "I'll drive you home first." The drive back was quiet, the easy connection of the day replaced by a growing distance, as Roman retreated into whatever business crisis awaited him. When they reached her apartment building, Roman apologized again. "I had a wonderful day," he said, and she could tell he meant it. "I'll call you later if that's okay." "Of course," Tessa said. "I hope everything works out with your company." Roman reached across the car and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Today was the best day I've had in a very long time, Tessa. Please remember that." As Tessa walked up to her apartment, she felt conflicted. The day had been perfect until that phone call, a glimpse into a potential future with Roman that seemed both wonderful and impossible. Inside, Aunt Maggie was watching TV. "You're back early," she observed. "How was your date?" "It was nice," Tessa said, not wanting to elaborate. On screen, a breaking news alert flashed. "This just in, Veale Industries stock has plummeted amid rumors of a major security breach. Sources say the company's flagship security software has been compromised, potentially exposing sensitive data from government and corporate clients. CEO Roman Veale has not yet made a public statement." Tessa's blood ran cold as she watched footage of the Veale Industries headquarters surrounded by press. Now she understood Roman's sudden change. This wasn't just routine business. It was a crisis that could potentially destroy everything he had built. Her phone buzzed with a text from Roman. "I'm sorry about today. Things are complicated right now. I need some time to handle this situation." Tessa stared at the message, then at the TV screen where analysts were already speculating about the future of Veale Industries. Roman's world was crashing down around. Him and Tessa realized with a sinking heart that there might not be room for her in it after all. For 3 days, Tessa heard nothing from Roman beyond short, vague texts. Still dealing with the situation. "Can't talk now, I'm sorry. Please understand." Meanwhile, the news was filled with the Veale Industries crisis. The security breach had affected major clients, including several government agencies. The company's stock had dropped by nearly 40%. Reporters camped outside the Veale Industries headquarters, hoping for a glimpse of the elusive CEO. Tessa tried to go about her normal routine, working at Homestyle, caring for Aunt Maggie, sketching in her rare free moments, but her thoughts kept returning to Roman. Was he okay? Would she ever see him again? "You're moping," Aunt Maggie observed as Tessa picked at her dinner on Wednesday night. "I'm not moping," Tessa protested. "I'm just tired." "You're worried about him," Maggie said. "Have you tried calling him?" Tessa shook her head. "He has enough to deal with. I don't want to be another problem." "Since when is someone caring about you a problem?" Maggie asked. Before Tessa could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Tessa? It's Marcus Reynolds, Roman's assistant." The voice was clipped, professional. "Roman asked me to call you. He'd like to see you tonight, if possible." Tessa's heart skipped. "Is he okay?" Pause. "He's dealing with a lot right now, but he specifically asked for you. Can you come to his apartment? I can send a car." Tessa hesitated, looking at Aunt Maggie, who was watching her with concern. "I'll come," Tessa said. "But I don't need a car, just give me the address." After writing down the address, in the most expensive part of downtown Detroit, Tessa hung up and explained the situation to her aunt. "Be careful," Maggie warned. "Not of Roman, but of his world. Money changes things, Tessa. It changes people." I know, Tessa said, grabbing her purse. I'll be back tonight. Take your time, Maggie said with a small smile. I'm not going anywhere. An hour later, Tessa stood outside a sleek high-rise building, feeling completely out of place. The doorman eyed her suspiciously until she gave Roman's name. Then his demeanor changed completely. Of course, Miss Monroe. Mr. Veale is expecting. You, top floor. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt endless. When the doors opened, Tessa stepped directly into a massive living space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The apartment was beautiful but sterile, expensive furniture that looked barely used, abstract art on the walls that felt chosen by a decorator rather than with personal taste. Roman, she called softly. He appeared from a hallway, looking exhausted. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled as if he'd been wearing them for days. You came, he said, relief evident in his voice. Of course I came, Tessa said, moving toward him. Are you okay? Roman ran a hand through his hair. Not really. Everything's falling apart. He led her to a large sofa and sank down, looking defeated. The security breach was deliberate. Someone inside the company. My head of security thinks it was orchestrated by our main competitor. That's awful, Tessa said, sitting beside him. Can't you go to the police? It's complicated, Roman said. We need proof, and right now we don't have enough. Meanwhile, our clients are panicking. Our stock is in free fall, and the board is demanding I make a public statement. Why haven't... You? Tessa asked gently. Roman's laugh was bitter. Because I haven't faced the press since Rachel died. The thought of all those cameras, all those questions... He shook his head. I can't do it. Tessa reached for his hand, surprised at how cold it felt. You don't have to face it alone. That's why I asked you here, Roman admitted, looking into her eyes. You're the only person who makes me feel normal, like I can breathe again. They sat in silence for a moment, his hand in hers. When was the last time you ate? Tessa asked. Noticing how pale he looked, Roman frowned, thinking, yesterday, maybe the day before? That's it, Tessa said, standing up. Show me your kitchen. You don't have to, Roman began. I want to, Tessa interrupted. Let me help. Roman's kitchen was massive and spotless, clearly unused. Tessa opened the refrigerator to find it nearly empty, except for some bottled water and a few takeout containers. Don't you ever cook? She asked. Not really, Roman admitted. Usually my housekeeper stocks basics, but she's been off this week. Tessa checked the pantry and found enough to make a simple pasta dish. As she worked, Roman sat at the counter watching her, some of the tension leaving his face. This feels nice, he said quietly. Having someone else here. The apartment's too big. For one person. How long have you lived here? Tessa asked, adding sauce to the pasta. 2 years, Roman said. Rachel picked it out. She said I needed a place that reflected my success. His smile was sad. She was always pushing me to enjoy the money, to live larger. I never cared about that part. What did you care about? Tessa asked, placing a plate in front of him. Roman considered as he took a bite. The work itself, solving problems, creating something useful. He looked around the apartment. All this, it was never the point. As they ate, Roman began to open up more about the current crisis. The security breach had targeted their most sensitive product, software used by government agencies to protect classified information. If we can't fix this and restore confidence, Veale Industries is finished, he said. Everything Rachel and I built, gone. What do you need to do? Tessa asked. Face the music, Roman said grimly. Make a public statement, reassure our clients, show leadership. That's what Marcus keeps telling me. He's right, Tessa said gently. Roman nodded, then suddenly looked at her with intensity. Come with me. Where? I want to show you something. He led her through the apartment to a set of glass doors that opened onto an expansive rooftop garden. Unlike the sterile interior, the garden was alive with flowers, herbs, and small trees in beautiful arrangements. String lights hung overhead, creating a magical atmosphere against the night sky. This is amazing, Tessa breathed, taking in the colorful blooms and fragrant herbs. This is where I spend most of my time, Roman said, his voice softening. "The only place that feels like home." They walked among the plants, Roman pointing out rare specimens and explaining how he cared for them. Here, in his garden, he seemed transformed, more confident, more at peace. "You should have been a botanist," Tessa said with a smile. "Maybe in another life," Roman replied. "In this one, I'm stuck being Roman Veale, CEO." "You say that like it's a prison sentence," Tessa observed. Roman paused beside a bench surrounded by flowering vines. "Sometimes it feels that way. The expectations, the responsibilities, the constant scrutiny." He sat down looking out at the city lights. "After Rachel died, I realized how trapped I was. She was the people person, the face of the company. I was happiest behind the scenes, working on the technical problems. But now, it all falls on me." Tessa sat beside him. "You miss her?" "Every day," Roman said, his voice cracking slightly. "She would know exactly what to do right now. She'd walk into that press conference with her head high, charm everyone in the room, and somehow turn this disaster into an opportunity." "Maybe you can channel some of that spirit," Tessa suggested. "Do it for her." Roman looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "You remind me of her sometimes. Not in how you look, but in how you see through me, how you're not afraid to push me." The moment hung between them, intimate and charged with emotion. "Tessa," Roman said softly, "meeting you was the most random, unlikely thing that could have happened. A wrong number text that brought you into my life when I was at my lowest point. I don't know what this is between us, but I know I don't want to lose it." His hand found hers on the bench, their fingers intertwining. "I'm not going anywhere," Tessa assured him. Roman leaned closer, his eyes asking a question. Tessa answered, by closing the distance between them, their lips meeting in a gentle kiss that deepened as Roman's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her closer. When they finally pulled apart, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "I haven't felt this alive in a very long time." "Me neither," Tessa admitted. They stayed in the garden for hours, talking, sharing occasional kisses, finding comfort in each other's presence. Roman told her more about his childhood, how he and Rachel had always been inseparable, dreaming up business ideas from the time they were 10 years old. "Our parents thought we were crazy," he said with a fond smile. "Two kids drawing up business plans instead of watching cartoons." In turn, Tessa told him about her parents, how her mother had been an art teacher, how losing them at 15 had nearly destroyed her. "Aunt Maggie saved me," she said. "She gave me a home, stability, that's why I could never leave her now." As the night grew late, Roman walked Tessa back inside. "It's too late for you to go home. You can stay here. I have 3 guest rooms." Tessa hesitated. "I should let Aunt Maggie know." After a quick call to her aunt, who seemed unsurprised and told her to be smart, Tessa accepted Roman's offer. He showed her to a beautiful guest room with its own bathroom. "There should be everything you need," he said. "If not, just ask." "Thank you," Tessa said, "for trusting me, for letting me in." Roman's smile was tender. "Thank you for coming when I needed someone. It means more than you know." He kissed her goodnight, a brief, sweet kiss that left Tessa feeling warm inside. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. "Tomorrow morning I'm going to call Marcus and schedule that press conference," he said with newfound determination. "It's time I stopped hiding." "I'm proud of you," Tessa told him, and meant it. After Roman left, Tessa explored the luxurious guest room with its king-sized bed and marble bathroom. Everything was top quality, from the sheets to the towels to the toiletries. It was a stark reminder of just how different their worlds were. "What am I doing here?" she wondered as she slipped under the silky sheets. A week ago, she'd never heard of Roman Veale. Now she was spending the night in his penthouse, falling for him despite all the reasons it couldn't possibly work. In the morning, Tessa woke to sunlight streaming through large windows. For a moment she was disoriented, then remembered where she was. She found clothes laid out for her, new jeans and a blouse in exactly her size with a note. "Hope these fit. Coffee in the kitchen. R." How did he know my size? Tessa wondered, then decided not to question it. The clothes fit perfectly. In the kitchen, she found Roman already dressed in a sharp suit, talking on the phone while a coffee machine burbled in the background. "Yes, Marcus, 2 p.m. today," he was saying. "Make sure all the major outlets are there. And I want our technical team ready to answer specific questions about the fix." He looked up and saw Tessa, his face brightening immediately. "I have to go. See you at the office." He hung up and approached Tessa, kissing her lightly. "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Like a rock," Tessa admitted. "That bed is amazing." "I'm glad," Roman said, pouring her a cup of coffee. "I have to go into the office to prepare for the press conference, but I was hoping you might come with me." "Not to the conference," he added, quickly seeing her expression. "Just to the office for moral support." "What about Aunt Maggie?" Tessa asked. "I should check on her." "Already taken care of," Roman said. "I hope you don't mind, but I sent my housekeeper over with some groceries and to help out today. Maggie seemed pleased with the arrangement when I spoke to her this morning." Tessa raised an eyebrow. "You've been busy." "When I decide to act, I move quickly," Roman said with a small smile. "It's one of my better qualities. So will you come?" "Okay," Tessa agreed, "but I work at 3 today." "I'll make sure you're there on time," Roman promised. The Veale Industries headquarters occupied the top floors of a gleaming skyscraper downtown. As Roman's private elevator carried them upward, Tessa felt increasingly out of place in her borrowed clothes. "Everyone's going to wonder who I am," she whispered. Roman squeezed her hand. "You're with me. That's all they need to know." The elevator opened directly into a reception area where a sharp-looking woman in her 40s jumped to her feet. "Mr. Veale, we weren't expecting you until later." "Hello, Janet," Roman said calmly. "This is Tessa Monroe. She'll be with me today. Please make sure she has everything she needs." Janet's eyes widened slightly as she looked at Tessa, clearly trying to place her. "Of course, Mr. Veale. Mr. Reynolds is waiting in your office." Roman led Tessa through a series of corridors where employees stopped and stared as they passed. Some looked shocked, others curious, all clearly surprised to see their reclusive CEO in person, and with an unknown woman, no less. Marcus Reynolds stood when they entered Roman's spacious corner office. He was tall and impeccably dressed, with a calculating gaze that assessed Tessa immediately. "Ms. Monroe," he said, extending his hand, "we spoke on the phone. Thank you for coming." His tone was polite but cool, making it clear he was reserving judgment. "The press packets are ready," Marcus continued, turning to Roman. "The technical team has prepared a detailed explanation of the breach and our solution. The board members will be present to show unified support." Roman nodded, looking more confident than Tessa had seen him. "Good. And the stock?" "Still down. But there's been some stabilization since we announced the press conference," Marcus said. "Investors are waiting to hear from you personally." As the men discussed strategy, Tessa wandered to the window, taking in the spectacular view of the city. On Roman's desk, she noticed a silver frame with a photo of him and a woman who had to be Rachel. They had the same eyes, the same smile. They looked happy, their arms around each other at what appeared to be a company event. "Tessa," Roman's voice brought her back to the present. "Marcus thinks we should go over my statement." For the next hour, Tessa sat quietly as Roman and Marcus refined the message he would deliver to the press. Watching Roman work was revealing. He was sharp, decisive, with a clear understanding of the technical details. This was a different side of him than the vulnerable man she had comforted last night, and Tessa found herself equally drawn to this version. Around noon, Marcus stepped out to take a call, leaving them alone. "You're good at this," Tessa said. "Being the CEO," Roman smiled wryly. "I should be. I've been doing it long enough." "Then why hide from it?" Tessa asked. "You obviously know what you're doing." Roman's expression grew serious. "After Rachel died, I lost my anchor. She was always the one who believed in me, who pushed me forward. Without her," he shook his head, "I just couldn't see the point anymore." Tessa crossed to where he sat and placed a hand on his shoulder. "And now?" Roman looked up at her, his eyes warm. "Now I'm finding new reasons to keep going." The moment was interrupted by Marcus returning, followed by a team of people with documents requiring Roman's attention. Tessa stepped back, suddenly feeling like an intruder in this world of high-stakes business. "I should probably go," she said quietly to Roman. "You're busy, and I need to get ready for work." Roman looked torn. "I'll have a car take you home." "I can take the bus," Tessa insisted. "It's fine, please," Roman said. "Let me do this one thing." Tessa nodded, knowing it was important to him. Roman instructed Marcus to arrange a car, then walked Tessa to the elevator. "Thank you for being here," he said, taking both her hands in his. "You've given me strength when I needed it most." "You already had the strength," Tessa told him. "You just needed to remember it." Roman kissed her gently, seemingly unconcerned about who might see. "I'll call you after the press conference." "You'll be great," Tessa assured him. As the elevator doors closed, Tessa saw Marcus approach Roman, his expression unreadable. The car that took Tessa home was a sleek, black luxury sedan with a driver who called her Mom and refused to accept a tip. When she arrived at her apartment building, Tessa felt the stark contrast between Roman's world and her own more keenly than ever. Inside, she found Aunt Maggie chatting happily with a friendly middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Elena, Roman's housekeeper. "She's been wonderful company," Maggie told Tessa, "and she brought enough groceries to feed an army." Indeed, the kitchen was stocked with more food than Tessa had seen in their apartment in years. After Elena left, Maggie gave Tessa a knowing look. "So, you spent the night at his place?" "In a guest room," Tessa clarified, feeling her cheeks warm. "Mm-hmm," Maggie hummed, unconvinced. "And those new clothes?" Tessa looked down at the designer outfit. "He left them for me this morning." "Very thoughtful," Maggie said. "He seems to care about you." "It's all happening so fast," Tessa admitted, "and his world is so different from ours." "Different doesn't mean wrong," Maggie pointed out. "Just different." Tessa changed into her homestyle uniform and headed to work, where the TV in the break room was tuned to the news. At precisely 2 p.m., Roman appeared at a podium in front of Veale Industries headquarters, looking confident and in control despite the pressure. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady. "As you know, Veale Industries experienced a significant security breach last week. I'm here today to address what happened, what we're doing about it, and how we're going to ensure it never happens again." Tessa watched, filled with pride as Roman handled the press with a calm authority, explaining the technical aspects in simple terms and taking full responsibility for the breach. "The buck stops with me," he said firmly. "I've been absent from the public eye for too long, and that ends today. Veale Industries is my company, my responsibility, and you have my personal guarantee that we will make this right." When a reporter asked about his absence since his sister's death, Roman's expression softened slightly. "Grief can be all-consuming," he said honestly. "I withdrew when I should have stepped up. I won't make that mistake again." By the end of the press conference, even the most skeptical reporters seemed impressed by Roman's performance. The final question came from a woman in the front row. "Mr. Veale, there are rumors that you were seen with an unidentified woman yesterday and today. Is there any truth to reports that you're dating someone new?" Tessa froze, her heart pounding. Roman's private life was about to become very public, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that. On screen, Roman's expression remained neutral. "My personal life is private, but I will say this. Sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right one. Thank you all for coming." With that cryptic statement, he stepped away from the podium, leaving reporters buzzing with speculation. Beth appeared beside Tessa. "Isn't that the guy whose flowers were delivered here the other day?" Tessa nodded, unable to speak. "Wait," Beth said, eyes widening. "Are you the unidentified woman?" Before Tessa could answer, her phone buzzed with a text. From Roman. "How did I do?" "You were amazing," she texted back. "But what was that last answer about?" "The truth," came his reply. "Are you mad?" "Not mad, just scared." There was a pause, then, "We should talk." "Dinner tonight? I'll come to you." "I work until 9. I'll wait." That evening, as Tessa approached her apartment building, she saw a group of photographers gathered outside. Somehow they had found her. Her connection to Roman was out. She slipped in through the back entrance, her heart racing. Inside her apartment, she found Roman and Aunt Maggie playing cards at the kitchen table as if it were the most normal thing. in the world. There she is, Maggie said cheerfully. Roman's been teaching me poker. And she's been taking all my money, Roman added with a grin. Did you see the photographers outside? Tessa asked. Roman's smile faded. Yes, I'm sorry about that. My security team is handling it. How did they find me? Someone at the office must have talked, Roman said, looking troubled. Tessa, we need to discuss what happens next. I'll leave you two alone, Maggie said, gathering her winnings. Don't stay up too late. After Maggie left, Roman took Tessa's hands. I know this is overwhelming. The press, the attention, it's a lot to handle. If you want to step back, I'll understand. Tessa looked into his eyes, seeing the fear there. Fear of rejection, of losing this connection they'd found. I'm scared, she admitted. This isn't my world. I don't know how to deal with photographers and news stories and people speculating about me. I know, Roman said gently, and I can't promise it will be easy. But I can promise to be there with you, to protect you as much as possible. He paused, his grip tightening slightly. Tessa, I'm falling in love with you. I know it's crazy, but it's true. The words hung in the air between them, honest and raw. I think I'm falling in love with you too, Tessa whispered, surprised at how right it felt to say it. Roman pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Then we'll figure it out together, day by day. They stayed like that for a long moment, finding comfort in each other's embrace. But as Tessa pulled back, she noticed Roman checking his watch. Do you need to go? She asked. I have an early meeting tomorrow, he admitted. The board wants to discuss next steps after the press conference. How did the market react? Positively, Roman said with satisfaction. The stock rebounded nearly 20% by closing, and most of our clients are reassured by the security fixes we've implemented. That's wonderful, Tessa said sincerely. Roman smiled, but then his expression grew more serious. There's something else. The investigation into the breach. Marcus thinks we have enough evidence now to prove it was orchestrated by Michael Harding, our main competitor. That's good, isn't it? Tessa asked. You can prove it wasn't your fault. It's complicated, Roman said. Harding is powerful, with a lot of political connections. Going after him directly could backfire. He sighed. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I just want to be with you. He stayed for another hour, the conversation turning to lighter topics. When he finally left, promising to call the next day, Tessa felt a mix of emotions, joy at this unexpected love, fear of the challenges ahead, and a nagging worry about the complications of Roman's world. As she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged her in a social media post. With a sense of dread, she opened it to find a photo of her and Roman leaving his office building, with the caption, "Who is Roman Veale's mystery woman? Sources say she's a retail clerk from a humble Detroit neighborhood. Talk about a modern Cinderella story." Comments were already flooding in, some supportive, others cruel and judgmental. Tessa turned off her phone, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality of being involved with a public figure. Just as she was about to turn out the light, there was a soft knock at her bedroom door. "Tessa?" Aunt Maggie called. "There's something on. The news, you should see." In the living room, the TV was showing a late-night business program. The host was interviewing a distinguished-looking older man identified as Michael Harding, CEO of Harding Security Solutions. "Mr. Harding, what do you make of Roman Veale's return to the public eye today?" the host was asking. Harding's smile was cold. "It's certainly a surprising development, given his extended absence. I wonder if Mr. Veale is truly prepared to lead his company through this crisis, especially with new distractions in his personal life." "You're referring to the woman he was seen with?" "I'm referring to his pattern of erratic behavior since his sister's death," Harding said smoothly. "Veale Industries needs steady leadership, not a recluse who emerges only when forced to do damage control." "That's not fair," Tessa said to the TV. "He's working so hard." "People like that don't fight fair, dear," Maggie said, patting her hand. "You should warn Roman," Tessa nodded, turning her phone back on to send a text. But before she could, a breaking news alert appeared on the screen. "This just in," the anchor announced. "Veale Industries has just released a statement announcing they have evidence that the recent security breach was the result of corporate espionage orchestrated by a competitor. While no names were mentioned, sources close to the company suggest Harding Security Solutions is the target of these allegations. Tessa stared at the screen in shock. Roman had made his move against Harding, and much sooner than she'd expected. The battle lines were being drawn, and somehow she found herself caught in the middle of a corporate war between two powerful men. What had she gotten herself into? Later that night, as Tessa finally drifted off to sleep, her phone buzzed once. More with a text from Roman. Things are going to get complicated, but no matter what happens, remember that finding you was the best mistake I ever made. Sweet dreams, Tessa. Despite her worries, Tessa found herself smiling as she closed her eyes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The billionaire CEO and the retail clerk who connected through a wrong number text. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind for Tessa. Photographers followed her to work, waited outside her apartment building, and even tried to interview her co-workers at Homestyle. Her simple life had been turned upside down. Roman had hired security to keep the more aggressive reporters at bay, but there was no escaping the public interest in their relationship. Social media buzzed with speculation, and entertainment shows ran segments analyzing everything from Tessa's clothes to her background. Veale's retail romance, read one headline. Billionaire finds love in unlikely place, proclaimed another. The most hurtful simply asked, gold digger or true love? Just ignore them, Roman advised during one of their evening phone calls. They'll lose interest eventually, but Tessa wasn't so sure. The press seemed fascinated by their apparent mismatch, the billionaire CEO and the ordinary retail clerk. At work, customers now came to Homestyle just to see Roman Veale's girlfriend, some even asking for selfies with her. Beth had appointed herself Tessa's unofficial bodyguard, running interference when people got too intrusive. You need a raise for this, Tessa told her friend after a particularly busy shift. Are you kidding? This is the most excitement we've ever had at Homestyle, Beth said with a grin. Besides, when you're Mrs. Veale, you can buy me a car. Tessa rolled her eyes. We're dating, not getting married. But privately, Tessa wondered where their relationship was headed. Despite the media frenzy, she and Roman had actually spent very little time together since the press conference. He was consumed with saving his company, working long hours to reassure clients and implement new security measures. They texted constantly, and he called every night, but their planned dates kept getting postponed due to emergency meetings or sudden crises. Roman was apologetic each time, promising to make it up to her soon. Meanwhile, the corporate battle between Veale Industries and Harding Security Solutions had escalated dramatically. Michael Harding had filed a defamation lawsuit against Veale Industries, calling the corporate espionage allegations baseless and malicious. Veale Industries countered with their own lawsuit, presenting evidence of the alleged hacking. The business news was filled with analysis of the feud, with experts taking sides and predicting outcomes. Some suggested that, regardless of who was right, the prolonged legal battle would damage both companies. Through it all, Tessa tried to maintain some normalcy, continuing to work her shifts at Homestyle and care for Aunt Maggie. But the stress was beginning to wear on her. You look tired, Maggie observed one evening, as Tessa collapsed on the sofa after work. I am tired, Tessa admitted. I never wanted this attention. I just wanted Roman, Maggie finished for her. Yes, Tessa said softly. But it's like we're living in different worlds that occasionally intersect. I don't know if that's enough. Maggie patted her hand. Have you talked to him about how you feel? Tessa shook her head. He has enough to worry about right now. Relationships don't work if you start hiding your feelings, dear, Maggie said, wisely. No matter how good your intentions. The next morning, Tessa was surprised to receive a call from Marcus Reynolds, Roman's assistant. Ms. Monroe, he said, his tone businesslike. I was hoping we could meet for coffee today. There are some matters I'd like to discuss with you. Tessa's stomach tightened with apprehension. Is Roman okay? Mr. Veale is fine, Marcus assured her. This is about other concerns. Would 1 o'clock at Riverside Cafe work for you? I suppose so, Tessa agreed, curious and worried about what these other concerns might be. Riverside Cafe was an upscale establishment where Tessa had never been before. She felt underdressed in her simple jeans and blouse, as the hostess led her to a corner table where Marcus waited, immaculate in a tailored suit. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Monroe," he said, standing as she approached. "Please call me Tessa," she said, taking a seat. "What's this about, Mr. Reynolds?" "Marcus," he corrected with a thin smile. "And I'll get straight to the point. I'm concerned about your relationship with Roman." Tessa's defenses rose immediately. "That's between Roman and me. Ordinarily, I would agree," Marcus said, his voice calm. "But these are not ordinary circumstances. Veale Industries is fighting for its survival right now. Roman needs to be focused, clear-headed. And you think I'm distracting him?" Tessa asked, hurt and anger rising in her chest. Marcus sipped his coffee. "I think your presence in his life has created complications. The media attention, the speculation, it's a distraction the company doesn't need right now." "So what are you suggesting?" Tessa asked, though she already knew the answer. "A cooling-off period," Marcus said smoothly. "Just until the current crisis is resolved, for the good of the company, for Roman's good." Tessa sat back, studying him. "Did Roman send you to tell me this?" "No," Marcus admitted. "He doesn't know I'm here, but I've known Roman for 8 years. I worked alongside him and Rachel as they built Veale Industries from nothing. I care about him and I care about the company." "Then you should know that Roman makes his own decisions," Tessa said firmly. "If he wants a cooling-off period, he can tell me himself." Marcus leaned forward. "Be reasonable, Tessa. What future do you really see with Roman? You come from completely different worlds. The novelty will wear off, and then what? Meanwhile, his reputation, his company, everything he and Rachel built together is at risk." His mention of Rachel struck a nerve. Tessa knew how important preserving his sister's legacy was to Roman. "I care about Roman," she said quietly. "I want what's best for him." "Then give him space to save his company," Marcus urged. "If what you have is real, it will survive a temporary separation." Before Tessa could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Roman. "Just got out of a difficult meeting. Thinking of you. Can I see you tonight?" Looking at the message, then back at Marcus, Tessa made her decision. "I appreciate your concern, Marcus," she said, standing up. "But my relationship with Roman is not your business. If he wants to end things, he knows where to find me." Marcus's expression hardened slightly. "You may regret taking this position, Ms. Monroe." "Maybe," Tessa acknowledged. "But at least it will be my choice to make, not yours." She left the cafe with her head high, but inside doubts were beginning to creep in. Was Marcus right? Was she a distraction Roman couldn't afford right now? Did she truly belong in his world? That evening, Roman came to her apartment looking exhausted but happy to see her. They sat in her small living room, Tessa curled against his side as he told her about his day. The meetings, the legal strategies, the technical challenges. "You seem distracted," he finally said, tilting her chin up to look at her. "What's wrong?" Tessa hesitated, then decided Aunt Maggie was right. Honesty was essential. "I had coffee with Marcus today." Roman frowned. "Marcus? Why?" "He's concerned about us," Tessa said carefully. "About me being a distraction during your company crisis." Roman's face darkened. "He had no right to approach you like that. I'll speak to him tomorrow." "No, wait," Tessa said, placing a hand on his arm. "Maybe he has a point. You're under so much pressure right now, and my presence in your life has only added to it." "Is that what you think?" Roman asked, looking hurt. "That you're a burden?" "No, but—" "Tessa," Roman interrupted, taking her hands in his. "Before you, I was barely living, just going through the motions, hiding from the world. You changed that. You gave me the courage to face the press, to fight for my company, to believe in something again." The intensity in his eyes took her breath away. "But what about the future?" she asked softly. "We come from such different worlds. I work retail. I have no college degree. I live in this tiny apartment, and I live in a penthouse I hate, surrounded by people who want things from me. With more money than I know what to do with," Roman countered. "Maybe our worlds are different, but they fit together perfectly." He pulled her closer. "I love you, Tessa Monroe. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Not Marcus, not the press, not the board. You're the best thing that's happened to me since. I lost Rachel, and I'm not letting you go. Tessa felt tears well up in her eyes. I love you too, but I'm scared. Everything's happening so fast and there's so much pressure. Roman wiped a tear from her cheek. Then we slow down. We take it one day at a time. But we do it together. They sealed the promise with a kiss, and for that moment, all the complications fell away. They were just Roman and Tessa, two people who had found each other through the strangest of circumstances. The next morning, Tessa woke to find Roman already dressed and making coffee in her kitchen, chatting easily with Aunt Maggie. "Morning." "Sleepyhead," he said, smiling as he handed her a cup. "I was just telling Maggie about my plan." "Plan?" Tessa asked, still half asleep. "For tonight," Roman explained. "I'm taking you somewhere special. And before you protest, it's not fancy, it's not public, and it's something I think you'll love." "What about work?" Tessa asked. "I have a shift this afternoon." "Already handled," Roman said. "I called Beth this morning and arranged for someone to cover for you. She said, and I quote, 'It's about time he took her on a proper date.'" Tessa laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "I'm determined," Roman corrected. "Be ready at 4? Casual clothes, nothing fancy." After Roman left for work, Tessa spent the day wondering what he had planned. At precisely 4 o'clock, he arrived in a simple sedan rather than his usual luxury car. "Going incognito?" Tessa asked as she got in. "Trying to avoid attracting attention," Roman explained. "Today is just for us." He drove them out of the city, taking back roads to avoid being followed by any persistent photographers. As they left, the urban sprawl behind, Tessa began to relax, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together without scrutiny. After about an hour, Roman turned onto a narrow lane that led to a modest lakeside cabin surrounded by trees. "What is this place?" Tessa asked as they pulled up. "My secret," Roman said with a small smile. "Rachel and I bought it when we first started making money. We needed somewhere to escape when things got overwhelming. No one else knows about it. Not Marcus, not the board, not the press. The cabin was rustic but comfortable, with a large deck overlooking a peaceful lake. Inside was simple furniture, a stack of books and a small kitchen." "It's beautiful," Tessa said, taking in the view. "Why? Haven't you mentioned it before?" "I haven't been here since Rachel died," Roman admitted. "It was our place, but I realized recently that I've been holding on to grief so tightly that I wasn't leaving room for new happiness." He took her hand. "I want to make new memories here, with you." They spent the evening cooking a simple meal together, talking, and laughing with an ease that had been missing during the hectic weeks since their relationship became public. After dinner, they sat on the deck, watching the sunset paint the lake with golden light. "I've been thinking," Roman said, his arm around her shoulders, "about what you said last night about our different worlds." "Roman, no, let me finish," he said gently. "You were right in a way. We do come from different backgrounds, but that's not what defines us or what matters between us." He gazed out at the water. "When Rachel died, I lost my direction. The company, the money, the success, none of it meant anything without her there to share it." He turned to look at Tessa. "And then you texted me by mistake, and something just clicked. For the first time in a year, I felt connected to something real again." "I felt it too," Tessa admitted. "Even that first night when you showed up with those wildflowers, there was something between us that I couldn't explain." Roman smiled. "My point is, it doesn't matter where we come from or what we do for a living. What matters is how we feel when we're together. Everything else is just noise." "Even Marcus?" Tessa asked with a small smile. "Especially Marcus," Roman said firmly. "I spoke to him this morning. He won't be interfering in our relationship again." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell, stars appearing one by one in the clear night sky. "I've been thinking about your art," Roman said suddenly. "You're too talented to be working retail, Tessa." "Roman, I know," he said, holding up a hand. "You don't want me to use my money or influence, but hear me out. What if you applied to that art school you mentioned? On your own merits, with your own portfolio, no strings, no influence." "I can't," Tessa said, though there was longing in her voice. "Aunt Maggie needs me." "Maggie wants you to be happy," Roman countered. She told me so herself, and what if she had proper care? A home health aide, someone to be there when you can't be. Those are expensive, Tessa protested. Tessa, Roman said softly, I know you don't want my money. I respect that independence. It's one of the things I love about you. But what's the point of having resources if I can't use them to help the people I care about? Not to control you, not to make you dependent, but to support your dreams. Tessa was silent, torn between her pride and the longing to pursue her art. Just think about it, Roman urged. That's all I'm asking. Later, as they lay together on the cabin's old sofa, talking quietly about everything and nothing, Tessa's phone buzzed. It was Beth from Homestyle. Tessa, you need to see this. Michael Harding just gave an interview on Channel 4, and he mentioned you. Me? Tessa sat up, alarmed. What did he say? He implied that your relationship with Roman was a publicity stunt to distract from the security breach, Beth said. He called it a convenient romance timed perfectly to humanize a failing CEO. Tessa felt sick. Thanks for letting me know. When she told Roman, his face hardened with anger. Harding's getting desperate. He knows we have evidence against him, so he's trying to discredit me personally. What if people believe him, Tessa asked. What if they think we're not real? Roman took her face in his hands. Let them think what they want. We know the truth. But Tessa couldn't shake her unease. Harding's accusation had struck at her deepest insecurity, that somehow she wasn't enough for someone like Roman, that there had to be an ulterior motive. The next morning, they drove back to the city, the peace of the cabin giving way to the reality of their complicated situation. As they approached Tessa's apartment, Roman's phone rang. It was Marcus. We have a problem, they heard him say through the car's speakers. Harding's going on the offensive. He's calling a press conference for 3 o'clock to reveal evidence of Veale Industries' corporate fraud. What evidence? Roman demanded. He's bluffing. Maybe, Marcus said. But the market's already reacting. Our stock is down 15% since the opening bell. Roman's jaw tightened. I'll be there in 20 minutes. After ending the call, he turned to Tessa with regret in his eyes. I'm sorry, I have to go. I understand, she said, trying to hide her disappointment. Go save your company. Roman kissed her quickly before dropping her off. I'll call you. Later, and Tessa, no matter what Harding says today, remember that what we have is real. Nothing can change that. Back in her apartment, Tessa found Aunt Maggie watching the business news, where analysts were already speculating about what bombshell Harding might drop. This looks serious, Maggie commented, as Tessa sank onto the sofa beside her. Roman will handle it, Tessa said with more confidence than she felt. As the appointed hour approached, Tessa and Maggie watched anxiously as Michael Harding took the podium at his company's headquarters. He was older than Roman, with silver hair and the polished look of someone who had been in the public eye for decades. Thank you all for coming, Harding began smoothly. As you know, Veale Industries has made serious allegations against my company, claiming we orchestrated the recent security breach in their systems. Today I want to set the record straight, he gestured, and an assistant set up a display screen beside him. What I'm about to show you is a series of internal emails from Veale Industries, documenting what I believe was a deliberate scheme to create a false security crisis, blame it on a competitor, and use the situation to explain away their own technical failures. Tessa gasped as emails appeared on the screen, purportedly showing discussions between Veale Industries executives about using a controlled breach to deflect attention from underlying flaws in their software. These emails, Harding continued, which were provided to me by a concerned whistleblower within Veale Industries, suggest that the company's leadership, including CEO Roman Veale, was aware of critical vulnerabilities in their security software for months, but chose to conceal these issues from clients and shareholders. Tessa's heart sank. The emails looked damning even to her untrained eye. But something felt wrong. The Roman she knew would never engage in such deception. I believe, Harding concluded, that Mr. Veale's recent return to public life, his sudden romance with an ordinary retail worker, and the dramatic accusations against my company are all part of a calculated strategy to salvage a failing business and a damaged reputation. The press erupted with questions, but Tessa couldn't bear to hear more. She turned off the TV, her hands shaking. "It's not true," she said firmly. "I know Roman. He wouldn't do that." "Of course he wouldn't," Maggie agreed. "That man is many things, but he's not dishonest." Hours passed with no word from Roman. Tessa tried calling, but her calls went straight to voicemail. The news and social media were exploding with the story, the general consensus being that Veale Industries was in serious trouble. By evening, Tessa was frantic with worry. Finally, her phone rang, but it wasn't Roman. It was Marcus. "Ms. Monroe," he said, his voice tense. "Roman asked me to call you. He's in an emergency board meeting and won't be able to reach out himself for some time." "Is it true?" Tessa demanded. "Those emails Harding showed?" "They're forgeries," Marcus said firmly. "Sophisticated ones, but forgeries nonetheless. Our technical team is working to prove it now." "How's Roman holding up?" There was a brief pause. "He's focused, determined. This attack was clearly meant to destroy him professionally and personally." "Personally? Harding directly attacked your relationship," Marcus pointed out. "He's trying to use you to hurt Roman." "What can I do?" Tessa asked, feeling helpless. Another pause, longer this time. "Actually, there is something, but it would require you to step further into the public eye, which I know you've been reluctant to do." "Tell me," Tessa said without hesitation. "We're calling a press conference tomorrow morning to respond to Harding's allegations," Marcus explained. "Roman will present the technical evidence proving the emails are fake. But we think it would be powerful if you were there beside him." "Me?" Tessa was surprised. "Why?" "Because Harding attacked not just Veale Industries, but your relationship," Marcus said. "Your presence would be a strong statement that you stand by Roman, that your relationship isn't some publicity stunt." "I thought you wanted me to stay away," Tessa said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "Something about being a distraction." "I was wrong," Marcus admitted, sounding sincere for the first time. "I've seen how Roman has changed since meeting you. He's stronger, more focused, more like the man he was when Rachel was alive. A beat. He needs you, Tessa, now more than ever." After hanging up, Tessa sat quietly thinking. Being at that press conference meant stepping fully into Roman's world, with all its scrutiny and pressure. It meant declaring to everyone that she was part of his life. "What should I do, Aunt Maggie?" she asked. "The question isn't what you should do," Maggie said gently. "It's what you want to do. Do you love him enough to face all those cameras, to have your life examined by strangers, to stand by him even when it's hard?" "Yes," Tessa said without hesitation. "I do." The next morning, Tessa stood backstage at Veale Industries headquarters, her heart racing as she listened to the buzz of the press gathering in the conference room. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress that Elena, Roman's housekeeper, had delivered to her apartment early that morning. Roman found her there, looking tired but determined in a sharp suit. His face softened when he saw her. "You came," he said, taking her hands. "Marcus told me he'd called you, but I wasn't sure." "Of course I came," Tessa said. "I love you. That means standing with you even when it's hard." The gratitude in Roman's eyes was overwhelming. "Tessa, when all this is over, when we've dealt with Harding and stabilized the company, I want to talk about our future, a real future, together." Before Tessa could respond, Marcus appeared. "It's time," he said. Taking a deep breath, Tessa walked alongside Roman to the podium, feeling the explosion of camera flashes as they appeared before the press. Roman's hand found hers, squeezing it reassuringly. "Good morning," Roman began, his voice strong and confident. "Yesterday, Michael Harding presented what he claimed were internal Veale Industries emails, documenting a deliberate scheme to create a false security breach. Those emails are forgeries." He gestured to a screen where Veale Industries' technical team had prepared a detailed analysis of the forged emails, highlighting discrepancies in metadata, timestamps, and server information. "Furthermore," Roman continued, "our investigation has uncovered evidence that these forgeries were created using specialized software developed by none other than Harding Security Solutions. The same software, ironically, that was used in the original breach of our systems." A murmur ran through the assembled press. "I have instructed our legal team to provide all evidence to the appropriate authorities," Roman said. We believe this clearly demonstrates that Mr. Harding not only orchestrated the original breach, but has now attempted to cover his tracks with forged evidence and personal attacks. Roman turned slightly, his expression softening as he looked at Tessa. Mr. Harding also chose to attack my personal life, suggesting that my relationship with Tessa Monroe was some kind of publicity stunt. Nothing could be further from the truth. He faced the press again. The truth is, Tessa and I met in the most random way possible, through a wrong number text. She had no idea who I was when she first opened her door to me. What has grown between us since then is real and precious, and it has nothing to do with Veale Industries, security breaches, or corporate rivalries. Roman's voice grew stronger. In fact, it was Tessa who gave me the courage to step back into public life, to fight for this company, to honor the legacy my sister and I built together. She reminded me what matters in life: genuine connection, honesty, and having the courage to open doors even when you're afraid of what's on the other side. Tessa felt tears pricking her eyes as Roman spoke, his words washing away all her doubts and fears. "I will now take questions about the technical evidence," Roman concluded. "But I will not be addressing further questions about my personal life. That part of the story is ours alone." The press conference lasted another 30 minutes, with Roman fielding technical questions with expertise and confidence. When it was over, he and Tessa left the podium together, ignoring the shouted personal questions that followed them. In the privacy of Roman's office, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Thank you for being there," he whispered, against her hair. "Always," Tessa promised. Over the next few days, the tide turned dramatically. The technical evidence presented by Veale Industries proved convincing, and several former Harding employees came forward to corroborate the allegations. The FBI opened an investigation into Harding Security Solutions, and Michael Harding himself was forced to step down as CEO pending the outcome. Veale Industries' stock rebounded strongly, and clients who had been wavering renewed their contracts. The crisis, it seemed, was over. 1 week after the press conference, Roman invited Tessa to his penthouse for dinner. When she arrived, she found the dining room transformed with candles and flowers. "What's all this?" she asked, surprised. "A celebration," Roman said, leading her to the table, "and a new beginning." Over dinner, Roman told her that the board had voted unanimously to support his leadership, impressed by how he had handled the crisis. "And I've made some decisions," he continued. "First, I'm promoting Marcus to Chief Operating Officer. He's earned it, and it will free me to focus on the areas of the business I care about most." "That's wonderful," Tessa said sincerely. "Second," Roman said, taking her hand across the table, "I've established a trust for Aunt Maggie's care. Before, you protest," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "It's not a gift. It's an investment in your future. Our future." "Roman, Tessa, please," he said earnestly, "let me do this. Not to control you or to make you dependent, but to free you to pursue your dreams. I've also set up a scholarship fund at Detroit Art Institute in Rachel's name. The first recipient will be chosen based on a portfolio review next month. You should apply." Tessa felt tears forming. "You really want me to go to art school?" "I want you to be happy," Roman said simply, "to have the chance to develop your talent. The rest will take care of itself." After dinner, Roman led her out to the rooftop garden, which was even more beautiful at night with string lights creating a magical atmosphere. "I have one more decision to share," he said as they walked among the flowers. "I'm selling this penthouse." Tessa looked at him in surprise. Why? You love this garden." "I do," Roman agreed. "But I've realized something. Home isn't about the place. It's about the people you share it with. I've been holding on to this penthouse because it was the last place Rachel and I were together. But it's time to make new memories in a new place." He stopped, turning to face her. "With you." "What are you saying?" Tessa asked, her heart beginning to race. Roman took both her hands in his. "I'm saying that I love you, Tessa Monroe. You came into my life by accident, a wrong number that turned out to be exactly right. You saw me when I was hiding from the world, and you gave me a reason to step back into the light." Slowly, he lowered himself to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy, but when you know something is right, why wait? Tessa Monroe. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a beautiful diamond ring, elegant but not ostentatious. Tessa's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Roman. If you need time, he said quickly, I understand. But I wanted you to know how I feel, what I want for our future. Yes, Tessa said, her voice trembling with emotion. Yes, you need time, or yes, you'll marry me? Roman asked, his eyes hopeful. Yes, I'll marry you, Tessa said, laughing through her tears. I love you, Roman Veale. Roman slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and hope he felt for their future. Later, as they stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, looking out at the city lights, Roman held her close. I've been thinking about that first night, he said softly. When you opened your door to a complete stranger with wildflowers, best mistake I ever made, Tessa said, leaning back against his chest. Not a mistake, Roman corrected. A beginning. Our beginning. 6 months later, Tessa stood in a simple white dress in the garden of their new home. A beautiful house by the lake, not far from the cabin where they had first escaped the world together. The garden was filled with flowers that Roman had planted himself, and an easel stood in a sunny corner near the house, where Tessa worked on her paintings when she wasn't attending classes at the Detroit Art Institute. Aunt Maggie sat in the front row of chairs, smiling proudly as Roman and Tessa exchanged vows before a small gathering of friends. Beth from Homestyle, Marcus and a few trusted colleagues from Veale Industries, and the home health aide who had become like family to Maggie. There were no photographers, no press. This moment was theirs alone. When I texted you by mistake that night, Tessa said in her vows, I was just trying to get groceries and medication. Instead, I found love at my door. You showed me that sometimes the wrong number can lead to the right person. And you, Roman replied, his voice thick with emotion, taught me that sometimes you have to open your door to a stranger to find your way home. I promise to always be that home for you, Tessa, no matter what. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Tessa knew that their story was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, adjustments as they built their life together. But one thing was certain, they had found in each other what most people search for all their lives, a love that felt like coming home. In the garden, among the flowers, Roman had tended with care, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Tessa and Roman began their new chapter. Not a billionaire and a retail clerk, not a CEO and an art student, but simply two people who had found each other through the strangest of circumstances, a wrong digit that had led to the right door. The end.